Welcome back to Adam's Everything EV, and one of my original guests on the show regarding Fisker is back. The Fisker King. No one will ever take the title. Joe, welcome back.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Once again, I just want to thank you so much. You have to be super busy right now, but we talked at a very different time than right now. There was absolutely no certainty about anything, and you didn't have an Ocean yet. So just take me through that, getting your Ocean and where it is right now.
Yeah, I've got a couple cars that I've picked up at the sale, just to learn about them. Just can't work on them if you don't know anything about them. So everything's kind of going about how we expected. Like it did last time. Just a little few different caveats with the bankruptcy. I'm sure I don't get too involved in any of that stuff, but as far as fixing the car and figuring things out, it's we're at that impatient point where everybody's like, there's no parts, there's no support. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And I understand that as a consumer. So, but it will unfold and the parts will become available and we'll have a whole network of people that are working on the cars. And, we're just at that point where Fisker has still got their hands in this pot a little bit. And, things are just, they're not going great as far as the software and things like that. So once we get all that ironed out and we have some stable software in these cars, I think everybody will get to enjoy them a little more.
I can't agree more. It's just so much impatience and anxiety on the consumer side.
Oh, yeah.
From your end, can you talk to me how that has worked so far, going from we thought it might be bankruptcy to now? Like what steps have you had to take to get where you are?
They needed to come up with a network of providers that could do it, and the Owners Association was good about putting together a group of shops around the country. Now I know not everybody's covered, but we were obviously early on that list to try and help out. So they invited us out for training, and they put together a training session with as many techs as they could get. And, it was not your typical training. It was kind of like, they ran through everything real quick and did what they could and gave us as much information as possible. And the goal here was to get a fast tool and be able to perform the water pump recall. That was their obligation for, the National Highway Traffic, Safety Administration. You've got a recall, you've got to do it. So they're pushing the software out, trying to get the box checked for recalls for bankruptcy, Chapter 7 conversion. I don't know where it goes from there. I really don't. I don't have that answer, but I know they're obligated to take care of it. There's still a whole question up in the air of who's paying for it. The owners of the cars are paying for it as far as we know right now. And we're trying to be as fair as we can about labor time and cost to get that done, but at the same time, we got to keep our doors open and cover our costs. So, do the best we can.
Yeah, it's really weird, this whole situation, because you have this warranty, it's promised, and then they can't promise it because they don't have the money to do it, but they have to get the parts out. How weird is this situation, and is this bespoke to you as far as experience?
Yeah, no, it's not. I mean, we did the Takata airbag recall on the Fisker Karma after their bankruptcy, and Karma Automotive actually picked that up. Because the Takata airbag recall affected, Honda, Ford, everybody, and Fisker wasn't immune to that. So Karma adopted that as almost a marketing tool also to get the customers back into their grasp and an opportunity to get the cars into the service centers. And they didn't even fully have dealerships established yet for the Rivero. But they felt it was a good obligation to make themselves look good and do it. So they paid us the labor to do it at service centers, even though Fisker was long gone. So we traveled all around the country doing them for people. I remember meeting up with, a dozen Fisker Karma owners in an airplane hangar in Boston and putting airbags in for them. So, and this was the dash airbag, which was not easy. So, we're doing it, and we'll do it again. We'll do the coolant pump if we have to in Kansas or wherever. And but we are trying to get the local ones done first and just prioritize. We are sending out a form to help people disseminate whether they can bring the car here or they're leave it or ship it over here on a truck, whatever they, so we can kind of keep a good even workflow. Otherwise, it would just be chaos.
Yeah, and I'm sure that the chaos is coming because
it's a ride.
Some of these places are online and some of them are not, and that's definitely been a little bit chaotic. I know Rich Rebuilds just did a video. Did you see that one?
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah, I saw it.
And so
guess he called us. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've done it. I've done it before too. I've done that exact same thing, and the answers were even more murky at that time because it was months ago.
Yeah.
Couple questions because I know a lot of people have a lot of questions, and you may or may not have answers, and I just kind of want to unearth some of
Yeah.
that and see. Do you have a fast tool
Yeah.
right now, and what was that process like in getting the credentials?
Yeah. So it was a lot of promises, and it's coming, and at the same time, we have the customers in our ear. Do can you do this? Can you do that? And now we don't have the tool. It did show up last week early, and then we had to get online with their IT person to get it established and connected to the cloud and all that. So we did get that done. I ended up doing that at home because they're California time, and we're East Coast, so it was like 7 p.m. at my garage at home. We had to have it connected to an Ocean. So luckily I have a car, and we got it up and going. And we've done one software download on my other car, and I really am telling people, like, we're trying to make sure this is right, because it can be disastrous if you brick a car, and guy's car came in here running, and now it's dead in our shop for 5 days until we get somebody to help. I mean, there's some techs around the Fisker world that are still employees there that have been helping me and support. But yeah, it's been interesting waiting for these things to arrive from Fisker, and so we do have the pumps now, and they came last week as well. So we're getting there. We're still waiting for the ICC software to arrive, which is a big one for resetting the infotainment and flashing and updating that. So the fast tool will not do the ICC. So
Okay.
That's yeah.
So, and I have another question about that. So, if somebody, let's say right now, calls you up and says, "Hey, I want to go to the next software." Let's say they bought a 1 point whatever version or don't have all the 2.0. Do you have any ICC versions, or are you just without at this point?
No, we're without at this point because the fast tool will not do it. I do have. They did email me a file because it was too large of a file. I did get we did find a way to send it, but I'm told from one of the other shops they tried to burn that to a USB and use it in the car and to update, and it didn't work. So I'm not really going to get too involved in those right now until they send me. Supposedly, it's going to come with the door handle tool to check the door handles, which is the other half of the recall. And in the box is supposed to be the USB with the ICC software. So hopefully we can get that and start doing them. They are doing 2 training sessions a week with us online on Zoom with the tech guys and the engineering. So, we have questions and we're getting them answered. And they are doing what they can to try and help us. But we're on a really, fast moving time clock here to get to these people before, October blank, when they no longer have jobs either. And so that is my only one. I don't worry too much about this stuff, but if I had one worry, I'd say that's my worry is once they do close up shop, are any of these people going to help us? And do we have any, existing continued support from anybody? Because, these people earn a paycheck. So what are they going to do? Are they, going to help us for free, or, we get together and pay them some money for consultation, some help? We're going to have to do something.
Because I know the FOA put those service locations up, and you're obviously listed there. And if you're watching this video and you live close to Philadelphia area, definitely reach out. We'll talk about that later on. But right now, just from personal experience, where are your cars as far as software? What have your experiences been with that? And you got any information on that right now?
Yeah, so one of my cars was done OTA with the 2.2. They did 25 cars as a pilot version, and ours they wanted to send the software to people that would be able to actually monitor it and see how it was performing. So they sent me one on my one vehicle, and that updated to 2.2 just seamlessly. I mean, I didn't have any issues. Didn't have a battery tender connected. People were worried about that. Mine just went. I got in it one day and it was there. So that one went okay. The other vehicle I still am doing manually. We did one module at a time, and it seemed to go okay. I'm not guaranteed that that's going to work. And mine was not on 1.0. It was on 2.1. So going from 2.1 to 2.2 is not an issue. I've heard some skepticism on the early versions jumping to 2.2. They tell me it's not to be a problem. I haven't had one in here yet to do it. I'm not going to be too fearful of it if it happens. I mean, what are we going to do? Run away from this stuff? We'll just look it right in the eye and deal with it. And the customer has to be understanding that these things can happen. And I think most of the people are aware by now through YouTube, like yourself, and other technical videos that they're watching, and Facebook and social media, that these things can happen when we do the software updates. But as long as they understand, we're trying. We're not trying to knock your car offline. So, there is risk involved, and that's the sucky part of it.
For sure. What is the process? Like, walk me through that. If somebody either flatbeds you a car, or, God forbid, it bricks on you while you're updating it, what's the process of the unbricking? What's that look like?
I'll let you know, because I haven't done it yet. I haven't had one brick. Well, the last car we had bricked here, Russell from Fisker came out. He's been able to do it because they have an engineering version of the tool, and the engineering version of the fast tool, which is not even called that, is much more capable of unbricking the vehicles, because it's kind of a standalone tool, whereas ours is doing everything based on this cloud. And that is probably my next biggest concern, which is this cloud. What happens when, that shuts down? What do we, do we have a plan in place for that? Because our tools will no longer work.
Is that the OFT tool?
Yeah, that's the one that he's using. So, again, if we had that, we'd all be in really good shape. But, as far as I know, that's licensing and things like, there's a lot of legal stuff involved with that. So, we can flash one module at a time. I'll let you know as soon as I do have one that I have to really unbrick. We just start by going one module at a time and, carefully reflashing them. And you're going to have a lot of failures and a lot of, redos. So it could take 4, 5, 6 hours of, hammering away at this thing to get it back online again. But yeah, we're in that learning stage right now. So that's where we're going to be at. And most of the customers are pretty understanding. Everybody I've spoken to so far anyway, is at that point, they've either gotten rid of the car, or, the people that still have it are like, look, I'm in for the ride. So, we're here.
Well, I definitely want to highlight that too, because there's a lot of talk about, gouging and labor costs and things like that. But,
I was worried about that too. And I did make that point where I thought it needed to be made. We all should be getting together. And, I saw this S3 company, a couple other companies out there offering travel services, and I don't know who they're hiring, whether it's former Fisker technicians, but the costs are pretty. Somebody posted a price sheet for what they were quoted, and I was like, oh my God, that's. But I mean, they're a business; you're entitled to charge what they want, and it's buyer beware, and it's everybody's right to charge what they want. But at the end of the day, we have costs. We got to pay rent. We got to pay our payroll. But I've put together a price list that we will be sending out shortly, like within the next day or two, to everybody that emailed our contact form on our site. Ours is pretty fair. It's a lot lower than what people were seeing out there, just because I've been doing this. It's not my first go around with this. So, I mean, it's an old trade adage that people say, the owner of a dealer I worked for many years ago with Volvo taught me, he said, you can go to the same barber for many, many years and just take a little off the top. Now that's not me, but you can go to the same barber for many years and take a little off the top. And once he scalps you once, you're never going back. So, and that kind of works the same way with the automotive service. You rip somebody off, they figure it out. They're never coming back. You're honest with them and you tell them, look, this is what we're going to do. This is what you need. Show them, where that price lies and what's behind it, and let them understand. And usually they'll be back, as long as you give them the product they're paying for. So our prices are fair. We're not, it's hourly rate, and how long is it going to take us to do the software? We did a couple time studies on the coolant pump. You do your first one, it takes you this long. By the time you do the third one, how much faster do you have it? And you take the average between the three, processes, and whatever that time is what you charge per hour. And that's fair,
Yeah, and I know you've been at this for a long time, especially you have literal duplicate experience with the Karma.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the recall. Let's talk about parts, how you're going about acquiring them. Where does the FOA come into play? And is this way different than the Karma situation?
Yeah, so it is, because the Karma situation, those parts were all held until they were purchased as an asset in a sale of the company. So when Wan Shang bought the holdings from Fisker Automotive, they got everything, and then the parts were available again. It was still 3-year like gap and blackout period. So, that was a challenge to get the parts, but dealers had inventory and stock of parts, and that's not the same this time. There were no parts in the U.S. at least on the ground. They had zero after sales support set up for this vehicle, so there were no parts warehouses. I know the guys that were in charge of setting that up, and they were in process of buying buildings and things, but nothing got here. So the parts are there. I mean, I was told it's like 6 football fields worth of parts sitting over in Austria. So they're not all going to get scrapped. We know that they're too valuable. So between America Lease and the Fisker Owners Association, I'm quite certain and confident that that's going to be sorted out and the parts will be available. We're in that tough period right now where it's like, oh, I need a windshield and nobody's got them. I'm sure somebody is on it, and they do exist. They had enough parts to build another 4,000 cars, I'm told. We'll get them. It's just a matter of when. As far as parts for the recall, they shipped me an allotment that's supposed to cover the vehicles that are located within a 200-mile radius of our shop. So, it's we've got plenty of water pumps here, that's for sure. And they say more will be available. And they showed up as expected, as they were described.
How addicted are you to Copart right now? Are you?
I'm staying off of that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I do it with Karmas. I buy them all the time. I've got 4 or 5 of them here that we're going to part out. But the Ocean, I'm still not. It's not my market. Just to hold on to parts. I think honestly they're still too pricey for to buy a whole car. Parts business has never been my strong point. I'm a service guy. I'll leave that to the dismantlers right now and let them do it, and I'll just stay in touch with them. And I kind of just let the people find their parts, and we'll help you out and put them on for right now.
You told me this weekend 200 people already reached out. Is that line any longer?
Rich Rebuilds puts a video up this weekend, and our name comes across the board, and the guy's got 1.5 million followers, and he's talking about service centers and things like that. I think they called him and all. So it's like, yeah, it's interesting. Once something happens, you can kind of see another uptick in people that are reaching out, and that's we tell people, well, hey, we're willing to travel. We will be willing to travel. I mean, I've been out to Hawaii already twice to fix Fisker Karmas that are on the islands out there, and we've been to Europe and China. There's a wealthy Chinese guy that's got 6 Fisker Karmas sitting in a warehouse, and we had to go out and repair them. And as long as you're willing to pay us to do it, I mean, we'll cover our costs. We don't mind. Right now, we just do want to get them the influx of local customers. I mean, that's our base. So once we do, we'll be open to taking a little road trip across the center of the country and kind of coordinating meetups. It is time consuming trying to set these up on your own, to gather 10 owners in an area, whereas but a Fisker owner, I'll say, they're usually pretty cool about being insightful and resourceful in general, and coordinating meetups with people. I have a guy in Pittsburgh. He stepped right up. He's like, "Oh, I'll get all the people around here together, and if you guys can come out, we'll do it." I said, "Yeah, I mean, it just splits the cost by 10 people. It's pennies at that point, So it does help for us to fly out to the middle of the country for one car. Obviously, not as doable."
Right, and you mentioned that S3, and that's kind of what that service has got to be for, right? Like, I want to jump the line, spare no expense, right? I want to be first.
It's just like anything else. You're willing to pay the money. I mean, we've had Karma owners do it. I mean, this guy flew us out to Seattle, and when we got to his house, we're like, okay, yeah, we know why you paid us, and he covered everything, airfare. He paid to rent us a garage to use with a lift and everything out there. And, there's all kinds of different people out there that are willing to do it. And that's fine. We're not, last I checked, I wasn't paying for a vacation house with this stuff. So, we're not out to try and make ourselves rich off of any of this stuff. And there are people that will try, to see an opportunity and seize it, which I feel for people that happens to.
And like you said, it's not a sustainable course of action in this industry.
It'll never stay around. Yeah, and you won't be. And we're getting ready to enter into our 10th year of doing this, and we're not going anywhere. And there's a reason for that. When you just do honest work, that's all.
Well, speaking of time, we're less than 2 weeks away from TomTom basically disappearing off the face of the earth when it comes to these cars. What's your thoughts on that, and what do you think the effects will be?
When America Lease needs all these same things that the owners do, And so they're coming up with processes to keep these things running and going. If it's a necessary thing, a critical thing, then they will have a solution, and hopefully we can find a way to make their solution ours for the other owners. Josh has been pretty good. The guy from America Lease, he cares. I mean, actually, he does. I'll say he does. So I've talked to him a few times, see if I need any of our help down here, because we're not that far, a couple hours away. So I think that they're going to be a good part of this, keeping these things going.
Yeah, and obviously, like you said, they've already had to stand up the cloud on their own. And there's definitely some experience to be had there for owners, and I really think that's just an excellent opportunity. What are you going to do if the entire TomTom thing crashes? Are you gonna be involved in trying to work that out?
Yeah, I'm definitely not into that level of technology. We're out here rebuilding battery packs and things, and I say we work on the high voltage stuff and not the low voltage stuff as much. So, we're not going to write software and do any of that stuff, because it's just that's not our level.
It does kind of seem like a stand back and wait until you get what you get.
Yep.
The FOA is saying it's like $25 a month once they stand it up. At least that's the rumor. I quoted 170 in my last video just to kind of be like, well, it could be insane. But I think that they're going to work with a more manageable solution. What do you tell somebody looking at one of these cars? And what do you tell an owner going forward who maybe just got one and has no clue?
Depends on, not to say this, but depends on what they paid for the car. So, obviously the folks that I feel for that bought this car originally knew, now knowing the risk. I mean, there is some common sense to this too. I mean, you're buying a new car from a startup, and you were there too. And, you bought the vehicle and this happened, and you man up and you say, well, what's my recourse? Is there any? People are finding that through Chase and things like that. So the person that just bought the car for $20,000, first thing I'm going to say to them is, you got a $65,000 car for $25,000. Let's focus on that first. So where's your $40,000 savings? What do you get for that savings? And you don't have the support you had that a new car owner was expecting, with a warranty and things like that. I myself am selling my Oceans with a warranty. I am probably the only nut job out there that's doing that, but I stand behind the product I sell to contain, it's our reputation. I'm still selling Fisker Karmas with a warranty. They're 12 years old now. But somebody that just bought one somewhere else, be patient is all I can say. And we're working on it. This is a lot of people in this boat this time. There was not as many last time around. And, there's a lot more support this time. I will say that. We'll work on getting the parts. We have to. We don't have a choice. So, and that's what I tell people when they're looking to buy one. I just sold one last week, and it was an original Fisker Karma owner traded in his Karma on an Ocean that I had here. And he said, what are we going to do I said, well, the same thing I've been doing with your Karma for the last 10 years, and he drove it every day and was successful. So we figure things out, and we'll do it.
The Karmas have yet to really get into what they really are as a value. And I think they're really kind of a bargain, especially somebody offering.
Yeah. If you want a really just a badass looking car that is a pleasure to drive, right now they're in the 30s to $40,000, and you find them in the 20s if you want to take the real risk and buy one that's not been bulletproofed by us, but and that's a term, not to say bulletproofed like it's bulletproof glass. I get that question. Oh, bulletproofed? Is it really bullet? No, its drivetrain is bulletproofed. But yeah, I mean, there is a thing to that, and we've already just finished our vent conversion that we've got for the Ocean to eliminate the whole electric vent system, and we've just put our first set in this week of manual vents, which just completely bypasses the system, and you open and close the vent like you did for 100 years, and those are the kind of things we'll do, and we'll make the cars right. When we see things breaking repetitively, we figure out why and make the part better, or improve things. That's all.
Now, especially with the recalls, there's obviously a 3,000, 4,000 person long line in the U.S. trying to get this stuff done. And you've got a line over 200 people, and I'm sure it's probably more by now. I bet your email's currently blowing up. But at the same time,
away.
How do you approach the line? Like, what's your order?
I basically just made up a Microsoft form for everybody that we're sending out that really lists all the details of an appointment. Are you driving in here? Do you want to wait? We have, loaner cars. Are we giving you a car for the day, or you need a car for more than one day? And, each version of it will be less and less priority. So if you need a loaner car for 2 days, we only have so much we can do. If you want to come in and wait, we got more openings for you. If you're going to drop the car off here and leave it for a week, we'll take you next week. So, and all those questions are on the form, as well as our whole pricing menu for each cost up front. Do you want a 12-volt battery checked and replaced? Do you want to do the manual vent conversion? That's going to take most of the day to do, because we have to take the dash apart, and time allotments. So everything's laid out and pretty cut and dry. And we're getting ready to launch that this week. And what that's going to do is give you 3 choices of dates when you can bring the car in. And then we're going to have an appointment person, which is going to end up, I think, being my wife, handling all this. Because if I'm just sitting here by the computer making appointments and handling this logistics, I'm not out there working on the recalls themselves. So right now we're charging just over $200 for the recall for the coolant pump, $265 for the software. Not charging anybody for calibrating the rear windows, no charge. We're already connected to the tool. I mean, there's fairness involved with that. NFC key fob programming, $175. Tire rotations, alignments, they're all fair menu prices.
How about those vents?
We're doing ours actually tomorrow. I'm going to put the first set in, do some video on it, and things like that, so people can see what it looks like. Develop the little handles to move the vents manually, just like a regular old vehicle, and they do work. We've done a set. We have them working on the bench, so we're going to put them in my Ocean tomorrow, and stay tuned for that. But $795, that just covers our labor and some of the parts. I'm having somebody 3D print the pieces that we need, and we've gone through several versions. He's put a lot of time into it to make sure that they're robust and will hold up for time.
And that's, I don't know, a 3-figure price is pretty good for peace of mind. I know a lot of people want these, that's a pretty fair price.
I think so. Yeah. And again, like I said, we're not trying to take advantage of anybody. We'd rather just see, people satisfied and stay in the car. Because, for the most part, since the beginning, the owner of Fisker Karma, they're great people. I got to say, I have the best customers. That's the only reason I still do this, because I've dealt with, worked as a foreman, a shop, a service manager at a dealership for 15 years. And I dealt with people's expectation levels of being pretty high. They just bought a brand new $40,000, $50,000 car, and they're having problems with it from mechanical issues, and they come into the place irate. And, most of my customers are just glad we're here to help them. And it's a completely different mindset, and they're, like I said, the people that no longer want the vehicle because they're not getting what they expected have already gotten rid of it and bought a Mercedes or something different. Whereas we are here for the people that just love the car and want to keep it. And that may be for people that bought it for $65,000 and are just going to drive it down until it hits the ground, because they want to limit their loss and get the most use out of it possible. Then we're here to keep it on the road, and that's what we've done.
So pulling the trigger on kind of this basically flood of service you're going to do sounds extremely complex. You need people for logistics. You're going to need to organize all the software you have. You have to practice the labor to be able to estimate the appropriate costs. What's the tipping point of you pulling the trigger on these people, just this big influence?
I mean, we're doing one tomorrow from a customer I promised from New Jersey that, and he's taking a long trip, and he'd been asking me since before we even had parts and stuff. And he's just, said, can you at least get my water pump in before I travel? He's going like 1,000 miles. So, we're getting him in tomorrow. We'll do his pump, and I'm still not, committed on his software or not. But, it's going to be in the next week or two that we'll have customers flowing in daily. Again, our goal right now is 2 to maybe 3 per day. But I think things are going to happen as we're trying to do this, that there's always roadblocks and things. So 2 a day is going to be where we're targeting to be, 5 days a week. And then, but I've got cars to travel to. I've got 2 in New Jersey this week that are bricked in garages, and, so trying to schedule things logistically where it makes sense in different regions and different areas, because we're essentially 3 technicians here, myself being counted in that. So, we're limited. And I have 2 months worth of Karma work sitting in the parking lot. So, and I want to keep my commitment to the original customers too. So, I don't want to drop them because there's a new kid on the block.
Well, it sounds to me like you have a really good problem right now.
Yeah, no, I'm not complaining. You didn't hear any complaints out of any of that, but call me back in a month.
I'm a Fisker Ocean owner, let's say, and I am in the I'm going to drive it till the wheels fall off category. But you see me when I walk in, and I just look concerned. What do you tell somebody that owns a Fisker to kind of mitigate the concerns? Like, how do we reduce this anxiety level?
That's a good one. People that don't trust the car or don't want the vehicle. But if you're in for it for the ride, you've already made that decision that I'm keeping it. I'm going to run it into the ground. I can just say, look back historically with what we've done with the Karma. I know it's a different animal, but we have a lot more support this time. There are a lot more people in the same water. And it does make humans by nature more comfortable to swim in water when there's other people swimming in it already, and that is just our nature. So I kind of focus on that when I talk to people, like, look, there's too many people in the same situation for things to just be given up or lost. So I think, I don't promise the world. I'm not a god. I know you said the Fisker guru or whatever. It's like, look, I'm limited. I'm human. So we'll do everything in our power. And, to date, I've not sent a Fisker Karma to the junkyard, without fixing it. So we've been able to keep every one of them on the road. I'm quite sure that this will be fine.
You're keeping the title, Joe. I'm going to let you keep the Fisker King title. But my crux here is experience, and you have kind of a very deep knowledge of this company, even in its previous iteration. But what this process is like. And I would encourage people that really want a good experience, especially if you're local, but just for peace of mind, and you can, the prices he just mentioned. How do we get a hold of you? Because like I said, I recommend you because of experience, and
Yep.
I want people to be able to have that peace of mind. Like you said, I don't see any anxiety on your face at all. This is just
No, we're not too concerned with it. I just tell people to reach out via our website, just because it's a simpler, direct way to tell people to get in touch with us. There's a contact us form on there, and just gives us your basics, email, phone number. We're just right now putting together a file of every person that's filled that form out, which is kind of just building a list. And then we're going to start sending out the form this week. So those that already have, I'm sure that are watching, we didn't lose touch with you or forget about you. We are going to send this form out. We're just making sure, because this is all hitting at once, that we're not over-promising and over-committing to people and saying, hey, we can get you in next week, and then we can't. So we are just trying to keep the flow moving. We will get to you. Trust me, the coolant pump is not a high failure rate item. And the software is, I tell people, if your car is running okay on the 2.1 or the version that you're on right now, don't panic. Don't have to race to us to get it done, because, well, it's not going to change. Your situation may change, but the software is not going to really change. So the 2.2 that's out there is going to be what we're left with. The coolant pump, if it's working fine, and I'd say 99% of the cars, this is probably not going to be an issue. But I understand it's here and it's ready to be done. You want to get it done. But we're just trying to keep the flow, moving. And I'm going backwards on this list from the first people to reach out to the last. Some people are more local. Some people have more urgent need. And so all that information is on the form, so that we can kind of make a schedule out of this and just kind of do best for them and us.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it kind of makes sense. It sounds to me like you're just going chronological order. We talked about the cloud, and we talked about the bankruptcy case, Tom. If I'm asking Joe, what's your biggest concern right now? Is it this cloud?
Yeah, I think that's my biggest concern, is the cloud. I think the parts hurdle will be taken care of at some point. Like I said, I'm using some of these situations to an advantage, but like America Lease, they need parts. They need body parts. They need, those cars are going to wear and tear more than anybody's. They're going to use them for Uber and taxis and things. They're going to get beat up. So they're going to need parts. But this is a different situation than the Karma was, whereas that car was kind of a standalone. This vehicle is very heavily dependent on this technology, and which would have been great had things kept going. And we see Tesla and how they do it, and I love their technology. My concern is what happens when it's not there. and the support isn't there. So it is a concern. And I say, if people can get together and keep this thing going for X amount of dollars per month, maybe everybody doesn't agree with that, but sometimes you got to do what's in the greater good of the whole. And, if I was up against that same decision, would I pay per month to keep it going? Yeah, I probably would.
And like I said, your level of expertise here is kind of unprecedented. Is this, like I said, all this experience? What is your thought process on the values going forward? I know you've got experience with the Karma and how those values have. There's been a few jumps and there's been a few pitfalls.
Yeah, the Karma values were tied a lot to the Ocean situation. A lot of Karma owners expected the value of the Karma to turn around when Fisker 2.0 came around with the Ocean, and I just told people, look, once they, if they become an established entity and an established brand again, they expect the same thing to happen with the Tesla Roadsters to happen, which, 5 years ago, I could have picked up a Roadster for $25,000 with a bricked battery, and now try and even find one for sale under $130,000, and it's insane. I kind of expected the same thing to happen. Obviously, we're not in the same situation that we had hoped for. Do I see the Ocean values going down? It's going to depend on the support. If the support works out and these several service shops that are set up can continue to keep these things going, and we iron out all these kinks, and we have parts support, the value should actually turn around and start climbing a bit. They're not going to hit obviously where they were, but no new vehicle is. So what people were saying the first time around with the Karma was like, oh, my $105,000 Karma is now worth $50,000. And this was like 3 years later. And I'm like, well, okay, can you do me a favor and go and take a look at an S-Class Mercedes that was $110,000 is now worth what? And I have them look, and I'm like, $56,000. I'm like, well, the car depreciated equally, now first year it took a big hit, and that's where everybody's at right now because of the bankruptcy. But, over time, it's like any other investment. As you hold on to it, the average loss 3 to 5 years later, even if these cars are worth the same they are now in 3 years, it's not as bad of a spot as they thought.
Sure. What other points of failure have you identified? Anything? Have you seen anything that maybe no one's talking about? Any Fisker King secrets in the service area?
I haven't seen too many cars yet because, like I said, we haven't really untaped the entrance yet and opened the floodgate. We are seeing a lot of the issues with the charge port door, the latch on that. I've tried to contact the manufacturer. We're working on a solution for that. So once that charge port lock doesn't work right, the cars aren't charging. Actually, I think that's what Rich Rebuilds ended up fixing. And it can brick the car. And there's a lot of really simple things that can knock this car offline. The trim stuff, the door handle light covers, being just shoddy material, that things were developed. It's workmanship wise. I think the car's actually built pretty well. I'm looking at a lot of the assembly stuff with the way the car was put together. And I'm talking from the bones, like from the underneath, the drivetrain side of it. The battery looks extremely solid, which that's good. That's like having a good, healthy heart as a human. So it's this little stupid trim stuff that we're seeing a lot of, and this technology with the software. I think once we get past the software and can get that ironed out, we are going to need somebody to really step in and help, get through the security stuff of all this and get this software ironed out. And I got faith that there are people out there that are well capable of doing that. There's actually a lot of Fisker owners that are really high level tech people that are and they're really into it. They want to get this stuff figured out, and they're kind of saviors at this point.
Is that what this is now? Is the Fisker Ocean an enthusiast car?
Yeah.
Are we like 10 years deep into enthusiasm already?
Yeah, I think so. I think the people that are owning this car you're going to need to understand those risks, and you're going to be willing to accept them. And you're probably going to be a car person that wants to drive something different than, the Toyota RAV4 or whatever else is out there, and willing to be, you have patience. Let's face it, if anybody still has them at this point, you got to be patient.
So what do you think about Rich Rebuilds putting those BMW logos on it? Did you see that?
Yeah. That's just our climate today. People are going to have fun with stuff like that. And, we'll all have our fun with it. There's always been the haters, and there's been all that, with every brand. I've dealt with it with the Karma for years. People stepping in and hating on it. It's like, well, it's part of life.
Where does the partnership with FOA come in service wise? Are you just gonna, because you have such a big backlog, are you worried about that, or are they reaching out to you? How is that working?
Well, they've already asked about sending their service ticket, which is a lot of overlap. I guarantee you, a lot of people that filled out tickets for them have already gotten added to our list. So we have to merge the two lists. I know they have several people. And I said, go ahead and send it. We'll merge them together and figure this all out and get it started. I mean, we will start doing them later this week and into next week, and we'll start to ramp it up. And we're prioritizing cars that are brick that maybe just have a dead 12-volt battery we got to replace, and we'll come out and service it. And, there's also shipping and towing, available to anybody that has AAA and wants to get it over here. Within 200 miles, I think is like the gold or platinum AAA plan. If you have that, or your auto insurance covers towing, I mean, send it over. We'll get it in. It does help if the cars are here and they're not an urgent, somebody's waiting in the customer. I mean, we have a customer lounge here and Wi-Fi and everything to hang out, and we'd love to have you here for the day. But at the same time, it is easier to do jobs in between other jobs and, piece them together and do it that way. So if you have AAA, you're a couple hundred miles, send it on over. Guarantee we'll get you in quicker than if you waited. So that's kind of how we're handling it.
Well, like I said, low prices, a lot of experience, and just the look on your face tells me everything's going to be fine. I feel better after this call completely, Joe. EvolutionAutosportsPA.com, and service starts really soon.
Again, it's the starting point for us. I mean, if we realize after a while that this is like we're getting killed on this is not enough labor, I'd rather start off fair than gouge the first people and then lower the price on something. That's just not fair. It's just not ethical. So yeah, I'll send you that. And I mean, there is a chance that we could have to increase things or let people know, like if your car, bricks during the software update and we have to spend several hours on it, that risk does exist. I mean, we may have to put more time into it. And, unfortunately, if you want to still see us around, we do have to pay our bills and just, the last thing I want to do is charge somebody more money than they expected coming in. And, unfortunately that does exist, but I'm not that, that plumber that goes into your house and says, oh, look at that. We noticed this now. Next thing you know, you're tearing walls open, and nobody wants that. But, we'll do what we can.
Well, once they come in and they get whatever they need done, whether it's a recall, a software update, something major that needs fixed, a small calibration, make sure you schedule your service with Joe too. Get your tires rotated at Evolution Autosports. Nobody knows these cars better than the actual Fisker service people. So Joe, I can't thank you enough for being on here, giving us an update. And then when you're ready to pull the trigger, let me know. I'll make sure I let everybody know.
Warm up, and we're going to put it up on we're going to put it up to the public too. Once we get everybody else contacted, we'll just put it up on the social media, on the Facebook groups and Instagram, and send the link to you, and then that way people just get the generic form filled out and send it right to us, and we'll work on it. We don't have a ton of manpower. We're not a big company, so we're just trying to keep within our boundaries and not overpromise to people. I hate that worse than anything. So that's where we're at.
Well, I know maybe a lot of heart rates have leveled out here, and maybe if I'm looking and shopping for an Ocean, I know some people find my channel that way. Are you in that business, and what's the best way to buy a Fisker Ocean if I want one right now? Because I know it's kind of murky.
I mean, right now the cars are all, pretty much the same car you see on eBay somewhere, the same car you see at a dealer. They're too new. I mean, they're basically as advertised. When you talk about the Karma, those cars have been through 12 years of either somebody else servicing it and mangling it and, not treating it well and nothing being updated or upgraded. The Oceans are all starting off at the same point. They were all just built. So the car you may find right now, I mean, there's people finding cars with 100, 200 miles on them for low 20s. I'm like, look, I can't beat that. I mean, I'm not going to sell you a car for 30 and it's the same thing. So our only difference is once we do start selling them regularly, we'll do all of our upgrades and service and maintenance to it and put it up on the lot for sale. We'll back it with a warranty. And that's the only difference. I mean, those that are worried about buying one from a used car lot with no warranty, that's a real worry to have, about having, you got to pay for your own repairs. We just traditionally have always put a warranty on everything we sell. And even beyond the warranty, like with the Karma, I'll give, first it was 2 years, unlimited miles. Now we're down to 1 year just to give peace of mind. And look, if people will tell you if something breaks 15 months after you owned it, I still step up. I mean, I'm not there to work like that. I think the first 2 Oceans that I sold, I put a 3-year warranty on them. And, it's not a 2-page contract that I wrote up. It's, it's kind of like here's what we'll take care of. But anybody that knows us and knows me, you're not going to get treated unfairly. If something, your front drive unit goes out or something, we'll take care of it. I mean, we never operated that way. So I do.
I tell you what, deep breath for a lot of Fisker people, Joe. Make sure you reach out to Joe at Evolution Autosports. Anything to add before we go, man? Thank you so much for this.
Yeah, just be patient with us. I know, we do get these long runs of people, calling and emailing, and it seems like, we're not getting back to you or anything like that. And it's, we literally are 3 people here. And at times all 3 of us are actually out in the shop working on cars. And I come in and check emails when I can or answer phone calls. So just be patient with us. We are here to help and work on it. Just, it's going to take a little time to get through this first rush. And then you'll notice it'll be a lot smoother sailing after this. So that's really all I can say is just be patient with reaching out to us. And, your form's not going unnoticed, and we'll fill it out and we'll get you going.
Awesome. So software, service, sales, Fisker Ocean, Joe, the Fisker King. Thank you so much, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Adam. Good talking to you.
Hey, smash the like button.
Thank you.